Hi, I'm Ken. I was Air Force, worked on F-4s and F-111s in various parts of the world. Let's see, I grew up in Broad Ripple, and it was a pretty nice town. It was a lot more like Mayberry back then. It's a little like, I don't know, disco or something now. I don't recognize the place. But in the 60s, the streets were full of children, and it was free-range parenting time. They could say, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, it's a beautiful day, be back for dinner, and not be signed up for parenting classes. So I use this time I've come to characterize it as early studies in Newtonian physics. They had some predictable results, and for instance, I cajoled my dad into building a soapbox derby. We were supposed to build it, but he built it, and that was inspired by my brother, who was an actual soapbox derby guy, getting to build a car. And I said, well, me too, and so he built it, and he knew that I wasn't really into the soapbox derby. He knew that I was going to wait until after the soapbox derby competition, and then I was going to be riding it down the streets. And he said, okay, but you know that street at Washington and like 54th? Very big hill. That would have been an epic trial for my soapbox derby car, but I respected his wishes, and I did not go down that hill. I did, however, go down Central and from Kessler towards 61st, and this lady had a driveway on the other side of the street that was conveniently U-shaped. I was drifting my soapbox derby through her driveway when the policeman caught us. Me and David, my good friend, and the cart was taken away. And the early studies had demonstrated that more mass at the top of the hill meant more speed at the bottom of the hill, and working on this when I got the car back, we got 3 guys standing on the back axle and 3 guys standing on the front axle, and Steve Von Forster, who we never let drive before, was driving, and me and another buddy pushed off, and it went down, but it was not on Central. I had learned caution. We were at Broadway and 61st, and it was a shallow hill, about a block long, and we didn't see a huge catastrophe coming. We pushed it off and stood back, and just then, kids came around the corner, a whole gaggle of kids, the free-range kids, and no parents in sight, and they were on Stingrays, and they ran into that go-kart, and it was just kids falling everywhere, which is a story I didn't tell Dad until I was 35. He thought it was funny. But yeah, if it had happened today, I'm pretty sure the police and child protective services, everybody would have been involved. Kids are deprived of that now. I thought I had things pretty well sorted out. My siblings had gone to school before me. I knew what was coming. Broad Ripple was there. Just as I got to Broad Ripple, my grandmother passed away. She was living on the farm Dad grew up on, and he felt he needed to buy that farm. And they'd threatened to sell the house before, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, and they never sold it. I went to a function at Broad Ripple, and I came home and the for sale sign was gone. I had not understood the idea of a motivated seller before. So we were moving. Found myself out in Henry County, near Moreland. Moreland you won't find on a map. You'd have to go about 10 miles from Newcastle to the northeast, and someplace in that region where there is nothing. That's where I was living. So, on the upside, I did have a new go-kart at this point, and there were lots of roads. This go-kart had a motor on it. It was a West Bend two-stroke. It sounded like Texas Chainsaw Massacre running down the road. And on this particular day, the throttle stuck as I was coming home, and I'd learned a new trick. I invented drifting, I guess. I was spinning. Anyway, when the throttle stuck, I had to make a left turn, and rather than just slamming on the brakes, I slammed on the brakes and threw it into this 360 spin thing, turned it, careened down the next road towards the house, and there was a car in the driveway I didn't recognize. And I couldn't reach the throttle to unstick it, and anyway, I did another of these cool slides, huge dust clouds, shot down the driveway, and coming towards the debris field where we were building some stuff, I remembered that I could choke off the carburetor and it would die. And I was airborne when I remembered that over the sand pile. Anyway, this sounded like death coming down the road or something. Mom and the new preacher were speaking in the kitchen when they were tumbling out the back door. I was fine. I didn't know what the problem was. Anyway, it was decided I needed a job. And Doc Osterman, the town veterinarian, went to our church. And a young lady that I went to school with had ran shrieking from this job because it involved unpleasantness, cleaning up after animals and stuff. And so there was an opening. I needed a job, clearly. And turned out I was actually pretty good at it. I was cleaning up after animals, and then I got to assist in the veterinarian clinic. They had an x-ray machine from like 1942, little x-ray head, and I would pose the animals for x-rays if they needed it. I've been x-rayed a lot. So anyway, I got really good at it, and he actually let me stand in, hand him instruments while there was operations going on little animals. Now, being in the country, he also had to handle big animals. So he had a truck, and he'd go out on the farm and, inoculate chickens, or there's some things that they do to farm animals that aren't really pleasant. And I got to help with some of that. And the second year, we got an intern, a fresh graduate from Purdue, Mike, I believe his name was. He was enormous. Just a big, jolly guy, gentle giant. And he was a running back before he was a veterinarian at Purdue. So he was a substantial kind of guy. He needed some help getting around. He didn't know the towns. There's uncharted territory out there on that dot northeast of Newcastle. So I got to ride along on one of his calls to fix a calf. Now, calves are not entirely enthused about being fixed, and they weren't. This one was surprised by the truck coming around the barn. I managed to be in the right position when the cow darted, dragging a rope, about 20 feet of rope, and I got just the end of it, and I was holding on to it as it was running out towards the pasture in freedom, and I didn't know what I was going to do because he outweighed me at least 3-1, and I was not going to catch him, but kind of like a skier, I was able to move out to the side. I didn't know what benefit that would be, but I ran to the side and faster, kind of like a skier picks up speed. And I noticed a tree coming. I said, idea. So I went to the left of the tree, he went to the right, and then my feet were suddenly ahead of me, and I was going backwards towards the tree. Oh, wham! And I held on. And the calf, you could see through the stars, that his feet went out in front of him. He collapsed mightily on the ground. And I tied it off real quick. And Mike was not terribly impressed. He told me that we didn't need to do that. We could have caught him later. But That was one. Okay. And then he got called out on another one. Now, old barns usually have a gable, and then one side they've built up so you can drive a tractor in. The other side, there's a big door where you could run like bales of hay up into it. Well, you could also open it for sunlight, and apparently he'd done that. The cow had gone up there and laid down to give birth and would develop problems, so he had to come out and separate the two. Unpleasant procedure, I don't want to describe it, but let's just say that part was successful. And then they're cleaning up and congratulating themselves, and the cow stands up, looks around and says, "Thank you very much, I've got things to do," and heads out the back door and dies. So that's two. And then there's another call. Foundered cow. Now, this is where cows have a very complicated digestion. They're used to eating grass. But if they get a chance to get into some corn, they will eat it until they're sick. And it gets into a center stomach, and they can't pass gas in either direction. It's a problem for them. These cows had broken in, and so they had like 6 cows down. When I say they have gas, it's not like, ooh, it hurts a little. They're keeled over, their feet in the air, they're blown up like something Shrek might do. Just huge. And they will die if you don't take care of them. Most farmers know that there's a spot right here that you stab, and it lets the gas out, and the cow will eventually get up and be fine. This one apparently didn't. And so he called Mike. And Mike gets out there. "Oh, yeah, it's no problem," and he's stabbing cows. "What kind of gas is this?" You see, now I didn't actually witness this, so I'm having to piece together from third parties. Apparently, there was a conversation with the farmer. "Well, what kind of gas is this?" And he says, "Well, it is methane." "What is methane?" "Methane is just like natural gas." "Natural gas? That's flammable." "Yeah, watch this." At which point he lit one of the cows. Here's a geyser of flame coming off the cow. Now the cow's beginning to be able to move again. It's standing up, "Thank you very much, I'm feeling better." And then it looks around and it says, "Fire!" So when cows get scared, they head for the barn. And when one cow gets scared, all cows get scared. All cows head to the barn. So you've got a stampede of 6 cows, and the flame is apparently running behind the first cow. And anyway, wooden barns full of hay are a bad place for flaming cows to go. So that evening he comes back, he's all singed and burned, and smells like a fire. And I said, what's up? He says, "Well, I think I'm done being a veterinarian." And I said, "Well, what are you going to do?" He says, "Well, I've got a 2nd degree." He was a commercial pilot. So I'm kind of hoping I don't read his name in the Boeing investigation or something. But I did learn a lot. It was a wonderful experience working at the veterinarian's clinic. And I don't brag about this often, but Dr. Osterman called me the super duper pooper scooper. So.